Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next FP&A Trends webinar. My name is Larissa Melnichuk. I'm Managing Director at FP&A Trends Group, an international FP&A board, and I will be facilitating today's discussion about how extended planning and analysis should be the baseline. Let me remind you about the main goal, the main mission of our webinars. So this is to share with you the latest trends and developments in modern financial planning and analysis. And what we want to say that there are specifics between industries, but those trends are really global. Very quickly, I would like to remind you the agenda for today. So the main subject is XP&A or extended FP&A. Today we will look at the definition of XPNA and why it should be the baseline. And also we will look at two quick case studies from two leading organizations, from Microsoft and from DB Regia. The panel is really international and we are coming from two different continents, from Europe and from the US. So the first one is Dr. Liran Edelist, who is president at JEDEX. Dr. Liran is very passionate about financial planning and analysis, and today he will give us a good framework, which is based on his experience on why XP&A should be the baseline. Liran, you're welcome.
Thank you, Larissa. So happy to join this webinar today and share our experience.
Fantastic! It's a pleasure to have you here, Liran. The next speaker is also from the US, Emre Gunguren, who is Group Finance Manager Surface at Microsoft. And Emre is joining us from Seattle, from the head office, and a lot of passion about the modern technology and transformation and how extended FP&A can involve so many different passions, but also about using artificial intelligence, automation, and many other techniques as well. Emre, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Larissa, and very happy to be here. Thank
you and welcome. And finally, our panelist from Germany, from Frankfurt, Tanja Schlesinger, who is VP Finance Business Intelligence and at Deutsche Bahn Regia. Tanja is a member of our Frankfurt FP&A board. She's also a member of our Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Committee. And Tanja is joining us from Frankfurt today to talk about the experience of her company with FP&A. Hi,
Larissa, thank you for having me here. And hello to everybody.
Welcome, Tanja. Before we start, it's really a great opportunity to say thank you so much to our partner and sponsor, JEDEX. Thank you so much for helping us and for supporting us with this webinar. It's one of the world's leading provider of powerful FP&A technology. And then very briefly to remind you that with FP&A Trends Group and International FP&A Board, we are traveling the world with face-to-face meetings, but obviously this year is special, so we're traveling globally. Our 27 cities, 16 countries, and 4 continents. We are planning meetings for the next year, definitely face-to-face as well. And just a quick update on how we will collaborate today. So your participation is welcome, and it will be through Q&A session, and also we will have 4 polling questions here. So please, can you use this technology? It's very easy to use. The Q&A session, it's via chat box, and you can send your questions as soon as you hear the presentations. Presentations are available right now in the handouts. You can download them, but also you will receive recording of this session and presentation within 2 days after this webinar. And also when we finish, it would be fantastic if you can fill on the survey after this session. It's important for us to understand how we can do better. And I would like to put a framework before we start the panel discussion with those 2 opening quotes. So the first one, it's from Gartner Research, the quite recent one from February this year. So this is the prediction that by 2024, 70% of new financial planning and analysis projects will become extended planning and analysis XP&A projects. And the second one is quite recent. Actually, I just read this article this morning. It's from a CFO Dive. And this is the quote from John Murphy, CFO of the Coca-Cola company, where he said that I've become less and less of a fan of the term scenario planning in the last 9 months. I think it's more about scenario management than scenario planning at the moment. And this is such a great quote to start this meeting, and also a reminder that we had the webinar from CFO, we had the presentation from CFO, global CFO from this company, from Coca-Cola, responsible for McDonald's business, just in May, where he was talking about the importance of system collaboration and integration. So it was from Victor Barnes, CFO of McDonald's business at Coca-Cola. So just to remind you very quickly, a quick introduction to extended FP&A. Not a new term for us at all. We call this integrated FP&A. We call this connected planning. And it's all about the fact that we have to run scenarios practically in real time, collaboratively, multidimensionally, and at different levels of the organization. And also, it's important for us to remember about harmonization of 3 main planning processes in our organization: strategic planning, business planning, operational. And of course, it's about top-down, bottom-up, and also cross-functional integration. We knew for some time already that FP&A is going beyond finance. And today we will see why we're talking about extended FP&A. Yes, it will be by 2024, but through travel, I already see that it's happening in quite a few organizations. So the first presentation, it's about the framework for XPNA subject. Dr. Liran Edelist, president at JEDEX. Liran, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Larissa, for the introduction. And I can take you directly to the first slide. And as we said, we're going to speak about XP&A and asking ourselves the question, what is XP&A? Then maybe a short answer before we getting into the detail is this is literally your roadmap for FP&A. This is literally, some of you have been more advanced in their journey during, the FP&A organization and capabilities. Some are maybe a little bit more the traditional side, but I'm sure that most of you are thinking about what is our next step, or how do we see our roadmap as a department, as a professional in the field. And I think the XP&A concept that we're talking about is that roadmap. So as Larissa already mentioned, we are talking about the expanded approach of the FP&A, and this is why Gartner kind of replaced this F with X, saying that we are talking about expanded, about cross-functional planning and analysis. And if we mention the cross-functional capabilities and roadmap in the mindset, we are talking about collaboration. We're talking about breaking those silos and saying, well, maybe if we have good planning capability in the organization, we want to collaborate between those silos and to create a center of excellence rather than keeping those silos separated with different technologies and different mindset. And with that, we're moving from the traditional finance, looking on P&L and financial numbering, to driver, cross-organizational, both strategic and operational level of planning. And another word for that, this is literally the digital transformation and the journey that FP&A will be doing. So we are talking about journey, and we are talking about evolution and not necessarily of revolution. So this is how we can grow up and not how we're changing or disruption, a huge disruption to our business. Within the next slide, what we can see is that roadmap and that sort of evolution that I'm talking about. For those of you who are familiar with the great work that was done in this form with the FP&A board, with the FP&A maturity model that has the developing stage, intermediate, and leading stage, this is something similar, but it's showing that from a more historical or timeline perspective. So I'm at the FP&A field for over 20 years, and 10 years ago, you could see, and above that, you could see CEO, CFO saying, this is our target, those are our goals for profitability, and that's it. It was all kind of behind closed door being set up. And that wasn't enough, because once you grow organization and people are more responsible for their revenues commitment or expense limitation, then you want to go into the bottom-up approach. And that's literally, the traditional bottom-up, okay, how we collect data. And by nature, this is like a moving of technology as well, from being on spreadsheet only into a sort level of automation, how you aggregate data. But then it's not enough. You have top-down, you have bottom-up, and then you want to make sure that you can fit between the top-down planning and the bottom-up. So you add models to that. So the model allows you to do better allocation. The models allow you to do better explanation on how you reach into those goals. And that's where we are today. This is the more advanced level of FP&A solution that involves not just processes, but it's processes, technology, mindset, and people at the organization. And once you have set it up and you have the right technology and mindset, you want to go into the next level. And that level is the XP&A, saying, okay, if I can do it for finance, I can do it for sales. I can do it for operational. I can get into a better capability for cash flow and other pieces. The next slide is taking that sales example, just to give it the more practical approach. So we are moving from revenue target as one number that we need to somehow cascade to the organization, into the ability to speak with every business unit or region about their target, into the FP&A that we're saying, okay, we have models, but then with the XP&A, we're taking that one step forward, and we say, if we have the target and that target is already having the drivers for us, and if it already has the geography split, why won't we get into the quota management as an example? Why won't we try to analyze our commission model and put some scenarios around that? So that is taking us, really for the cross-functional, it's taking us with technology to the next level. We had one of our customers talking with us about AI, and we said, yes, you are so mature, you have all your models in, why won't we run AI that can show you churn of customers, and that will give you the ability to predict or to plan in a better way how you compensate for churn, or maybe how you can prevent that in the other way. So we put more tools, more technology, and connect that strategic level with the standard or the classic or advanced FP&A capabilities through more operational processes. We can go to the next slide, and the next slide is saying, okay, so how we can make that kind of shift, or what does it require from the organization? I will start with the point at the middle at your screen, and that's the digital transformation. So the mindset of digital transformation is always tools and technology. Remember that it is not just about, okay, let's bring a new tool. No, it's also thinking about processes, about interface between people, between systems, and so on. So we want to make sure that we have the digital transformation in our mindset. And the next piece is that we do want to create center of excellence. We want to make sure that it's not just planners that knows how P&L should be look like, but it's also about inventory, discount level, segmentation, and creating that holistic approach, and not just the finance or creating different planning silos in the organization. And as I mentioned, the way to explain it is that it's really a natural growth and evolution. Last but not least, you probably ask yourself, well, we have that vision and we have that roadmap. This is what the industry experts are talking about. How do we do it? So we made a kind of quiz yourself sort of question, and we picked a couple of topics. You can see it at the next slide, that those topics can help you to identify, are you ready for that? And we put together 5 questions. And the first question is like, where is your current FP&A approach? If your FP&A is dealing more with data collection, then you definitely need to move more into the driver base. So, don't ask the goals of your budget in numbers, but ask it in drivers, and then the driver can impact your ability to analyze, to plan, to cascade targets, and to allocate numbers in a better way. And the second one is, how rich is your data? By nature, if you want to go through the journey of center of excellence, cross-functional FP&A, we want to collect data from various systems. So we have to make sure that our planning system, our planning approach is not just based on the GL data that we are already collecting. We have to make sure that we have flexible tools. If we don't have flexible tool, if whenever the company is having a challenge or an opportunity, our tools are not supporting that, then it's a problem. So we have to make sure that for the planning purposes, we have agile, we have self-service tool that can easily adapt into new scenarios and situations. And then what is our planning model? Do we have in our mindset and data and capabilities AI? Do we have enough data to run AI models? Do we have planning models, or again, it's all simple P times Q sort of an exercise? So when it is more, you can see those kinds of ranges. As more modeling capabilities we have, we are more ready to that journey and to that center of excellence approach. And last but not least, of course, if you want to break silos, you need to bring value to the organization. You have to make sure that FP&A is a business partner and not just a controlling function at the organization. So again, the story behind that is the digital transformation story, but it gives you some practical tools that you can take into the next level, help you to contribute to your organization and to bring better value to different departments above and expanding that functional FP&A stuff. With that being said, that was the last slide of my presentation. I'm ready for some comments from my colleagues.
Liron, thank you so much for sharing your vision and your experience with us. Definitely extended FP&A, it's more than just technology. It's all about the process and driver-based models and analytical methods, and also the culture and data and so on and so forth. I would like to ask Emre to give your key takeaways from this session and to build up on your knowledge and experience. So what would be your commentaries, Emre?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Liran. I think you laid the ground really well on the term XP&A, and we should kind of think through how we do things today and how do we think about maybe doing them differently in the future. One thing I would say is that like the term XP&A is a new one, obviously, but for us the instinct of continuously improving the way we do things, that has always been here, and I'm really glad to, as we go along in the presentation, to share some real concrete examples of the journey that we've been doing on the Microsoft side here.
Thank you, Emre. Tanya, what would be your commentaries on this?
Absolutely, I'd like to join in. Liran, you showed us your roadmap, or literally our roadmaps, and highlighted the importance of three things. And I remember cross-functional, I heard you saying dynamic, and digital transformation. I think you stressed quite well the necessity to start a holistic approach, and I fully agree. In the past, I think FP&A tried to bridge the gap to operational units by following an idea of business partnering. And the more we wanted to become a good business partner, the more we developed insights in operational causes. And I think FP&A was there counting on how to connect the dots to evaluate financial effects. And today, with the modern data management and advanced analytics, we just speed up this process. And it's wonderful. XP&A, that's a true change to our business culture and definitely gives us more speed in adapting to a very volatile world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you, Liran. I think it's a good timing to receive the feedback from our participants. So let me open the first polling question. We really would like to understand where you are at the moment at your extended cross-functional planning and analysis journey. So please, can you use your panel, can you use the tool in order to vote? Has your organization adopted a cross-functional extended planning and analysis, or XP&A strategy yet? And there are, please choose only one option. My organization has already made a move in that direction. We updated FP&A structure and tools to move in that direction. My organization may adopt in the few years, or we don't believe that FP&A needs a cross-functional strategy. So please, can you continue to vote? I can see that almost half of you already voted, so just a few seconds. Please continue to choose one of those. It would be very interesting to see where you are. And let me close the poll right now and share the results with everyone. So we can see that 23% of you has already moved in that direction. 36% of you already adjusted FP&A structure and tool. 39% of you may adopt in the few years, and only 2% of you think that probably it's not a good timing for you yet. Liran, what would be your commentary on this? Any surprises? Anything you would like to emphasize?
Well, maybe let me first disclose that we spend a lot of time preparing this webinar, right? I'm not sure if all the practitioners know about that. What I didn't share is like what is my cheat sheet and what is my prediction at the answers here. I have to say I'm a bit surprised that I see almost a quarter of the participants saying that, yeah, it's pretty obvious for them that they're already in that journey and they understand that and they're going through that. I was expecting to see a little bit more in between and probably a little bit less in that innovation. But I think it's really showing us that regardless, the challenges in our world right now, organizations are moving forward, taking the right steps, and are thinking about that evolution and the business value that can come out of that modern approach of extended P&A.
Thank you so much, Liran. A great commentary, and I would like to ask Emre, anything you would like to add here?
I mean, I guess I'm a little less surprised than Liran maybe, and good to see that there's definitely progress on that side. Obviously, this is not a right or wrong type of an answer, and we're all going through our individual journeys. But I'm kind of glad to see that the progress that a good chunk of us have already made, and another chunk has already started in the right direction. So really, great results.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your commentary, and thank you everyone for sharing your journey with us, experience on this journey. So this is the timing to look at the first case study. Emre Gungoran, Group Finance Manager Surface at Microsoft, joining us from Seattle with the story of Microsoft around XP&A. And before we start, I would like to say that we were impressed with Microsoft case study in Japan when we opened FPMA Board in Tokyo 2 years ago, and when we had a presentation from your colleague Emre, and it was about digital FP&A and how one of the biggest company in the world is managing this. You see, and we always say that if it's happening with one of the biggest company in the world, it's a huge message to all of us in FP&A to adapt and adjust. You're welcome. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa. It's super, and again, thanks for having me. So super quick introduction on the company, Microsoft. You can see our mission statement, some of our principles here on the slide, and the 6 solution areas that how we help our customers empower experiences and help lead through their digital transformation. Founded in 1975, we're headquartered in Redmond, Washington. Operating in 120 subsidiaries with north of 160,000 employees, and the last 4 quarters reported revenue above $145 billion across our product and services portfolio. Some of the key ones being Azure, Office, Microsoft 365, Dynamics, LinkedIn, Surface, Xbox, Windows, as I'm sure you might have, used one or way more than a few of those products in your day-to-day life at home as well as at work. As we move to the next slide, I'll show you a quick glimpse on how we're structured in the finance organization here in Microsoft. We have 9 main teams reporting to our CFO here, and then we kind of put the ones that where we have a little bit more core FP&A type of functions on the left-hand sides, and we have our engineering group finances that work really closely with the product engineering teams, working on the product planning, pricing, just as well as the revenue P&L management, target setting, KPIs, etc. And then we have our sales supporting finance team, and we kind of segment them as to consumer and commercial, again, depending on the products and the customer segments that they work on, that are primarily focused on, again, supporting the sales and marketing teams, and drive revenue and market share. And lastly, central finance team that are supporting our senior leadership team, earnings process with investor relations, and that manages our cross-product, cross-segment processes across the company. Now, when we move, and let's talk a little bit about our journey here in Microsoft. So Larissa, if you can help me move to the next slide, please. So going back in time, we started around 2005. We had this project called One Finance, where we wanted to standardize on a couple of things that we do and increase our internal controls. So we launched an initiative called One Finance to centralize some of the processes into like 3 regional operations centers across the world, and also outsource some of our transactional work as well. Came 2008, core finance, what we called as discipline at the core and flexibility at the edge. But what we really wanted to accomplish there is to structure a lot of our data while being able to provide flexibility to cater the needs of individual businesses. And lastly, in the last couple of years, just the advancement of technology and driving digital transformation has been super key for us. And the last couple of years, we call this the modern finance era. Using our tools and how we kind of improve them better. And I'll be very happy to give you 2 quick examples of how we do things here. So next up, what we will see is, if we can move to the next slide, Larissa, please, is a view of how we used to do planning back in the days. This is rolling back probably 4 or 5 years ago. Obviously, a very crowded snapshot of a PowerPoint slide that I'm sure you all are familiar with, and you've used it at some point, somewhere, somehow. And then this is how we would do planning from central teams here. We would send out our targets to our employees in the individual areas to share what the targets are by product, by customer segments, with some key metrics underneath. And then we would kind of let our area teams to digest this information and then be able to land these targets with their respective subsidiaries, across the world. And then when we kind of, over the course of the years, we're gonna fast forward on the next slide and take a look at how we do things now. So the snapshot on the left-hand side is the planning details for one product and how we share the metrics with our field team. So the moment then we have a target for a specific product, depending on what those drivers are, again, that's the beauty of the dynamic driver-based modeling. The teams will be able to understand and digest, are we expecting the revenue from the existing customer that are expected to renew their contracts at a certain time? Are they supposed to be driven from, customer going from a lower end solution to a, upsolds to a higher end SKU? And again, it's just fascinating for us to be able to have it at a super high level and being able to cascade the drivers down to the subsidiary level, at a relatively super, fast route. And we were able to kind of do this, again, the driver-based modeling, leveraging our own technologies like Azure, as well as our third-party solution like Jedox, just to drive agility and collaboration. And one more, kind of key takeaway and kind of touching base is to how we think about having all the metrics in here. Again, go back in the days, finance doing the revenue, and then they would have like teams to follow up and build on, decomposing that to come up with some of the metrics, say customer ads, for example, and become a goal for the marketing team to operate. Having all like these very detailed models at the very granular level kind of helps us collaborate much better, whether it's the quota setting process or whether with working with the marketing teams, it's just helped us going beyond finance so much better. So as we move to the next slide, I'll give you the second example, and then that's around probably using some of these XP&A platforms, and namely machine learning on this one. A very basic slide as to how machine learning can help us do things. I'll focus on the one on the very left, which is, okay, what's going to be my revenue in the next quarter for a given geo for a given product. I'm sure we all face that issue oftentimes in our daily life. Again, let's take a look at what we have done. Again, a real concrete example of what we have done here in our the commercial side of our business in the last couple of years. So if you can move to the next one for me, Larissa, please. This is so what we have done is we've created this tool called Commercial Predict. So the tool kind of combines the traditional methods of doing things, as in like looking at the pipeline information and understanding what's the past close rates are, how do we project for future, looking at the list of deals that are upcoming, some statistical models and like run rates and growth trends, and also adding machine learning to us, like such as leveraging the seasonal trends decomposition and exponential smoothing models to be able to produce results based on what happened in the past. Again, this was a project that we've started in the central teams here in Redmond, and then shared to aid our field teams' forecasting efforts. And then on the next slide, we'll see the results like very concretely as to how it helped us. So the table on the left compares the accuracy of compared for in the first 8 quarters since we launched this, as to and in a nutshell, comparing the CP, the Commercial Predict, versus the CFO, our traditional forecast results. 5 out of 8 quarters, the machine learning center, the Commercial Predict tool was actually more accurate than our bottom up. Again, amazing use of our technology here on the Azure Data Factory and SQL database. What I was going to kind of, if I were to kind of sum it all up and say we were able to kind of take like a huge labor-intensive work to make it a very low maintenance thing at the very end. Now this took time, obviously. I think this one specifically was around 8 to 10 weeks, and a lot of iterations on the models and kind of fine-tuning and tweaking. But then what it kind of gives us at the very end is the agility, right? Being able to have this tool in your fingertips and be able to pull those the moment you want. That was just they're fabulous for us. And if you can move to the next slide, I'll share. Going through again, these were 2 concrete examples, but like, and I have a lessons learned slide here. For the interest of time, I'll pick 2. Well, data is key, being absolutely understanding how your data is structured, where it lies, what how are them going to be used, in which metrics, and when are going to be refreshed, and the process design. Again, spending the time up front to design a process, it's being super valuable. In my own experience, either it has ruined our timelines and we had to restructure a poorly designed process, or we were able to kind of like storm through as we go along. Again, thanks for, I think I'm ready for some comments from the rest of you, and feel free to shoot out your questions as well as we go along.
Emre, thank you for sharing your incredible experience and your case study. I would like to ask Liron just to give your commentaries on this.
Yes, thank you for a great presentation, Emre. I would like to share with the team like my 2 points here. The first one, you mentioned modern finance, one of your first slides, and I really like that sort of a branding. Everyone is talking about a transformation, but this message is kind of contradict the mindset of some people. Finance is always a very traditional department. So talking about modern finance is changing also, our business partner in the organization, the way they should be thinking about finance. So I think that's a good point and something that probably other people here can adapt. And the other one, which is much more fascinating than that, everyone knows about the huge success of Microsoft over the past 5-6 years, and the transformation of Microsoft from a software company to a cloud company with all the great innovation, cloud, Azure, and everything that is out there. I think it's amazing to see the transformation you showed with the FP&A, with the tool, with the method, with the approach, going side by side with the growth and the transformation of the company. And I would just say it's probably, you cannot do one without the other. You cannot move the company without having the finance supporting that in such advanced way and solutions.
Thank you so much, Liron. And I would like to invite Tanya. Tanya, your quick 30 seconds key takeaways from this session, please.
Sure. Emre, I really appreciate your truth about machine learning. At the end, it is still our humans feeding information and data to computers, and they run algorithms. But what you told us was that the advantage of machine learning lies in the speed of producing results, especially when we compare it to the traditional way of mostly using Microsoft products like Excel. I think advanced analytics is our strongest bet on how you can facilitate change and how you can be able to faster adapt to a constantly changing world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you, Emre. This is the timing to hear from our audience, and I'm launching the second polling question. We would like to understand what would be the next steps in your extended planning and analysis journey. So please, can you start voting to choose one of those? Is it to align people? Is it updating driver-based models? Is it harmonizing data? Is it about implementing technology or creating the XP&A vision? So please, if you can start voting. I can see that actually more than a third of you already voted, almost half of you. Please continue to vote, just a few seconds, just a few more seconds. I can see that more than 50% already voted, just a few seconds. And I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. I'm sharing the results and I would like to ask Emre to comment on this. So what would you say?
It seems like it's kind of a very balanced, with maybe just a little bit more weight on the vision. I absolutely agree on the vision wise. I'll probably have been my pick too, if I were to vote, because you didn't allow me to vote here, Larissa. But just starting that, just being able to have a plan and then being able to go to the next steps and execute. It's crucial, as it kind of involves. Again, not only the traditional, finance teams, but maybe some broader organization in this sense. So,
thank you so much, Emre, and thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your experience with us, your journey. The timing is now to move to the next case study from Europe, from DB Regia, Tanya Schlesinger, VP Business Intelligence, One Source at Deutsche Bahn Regia. Tanya, you're welcome. And before we start, I'm so pleased to see the progress your company achieved. I remember how 2 years ago you presented in Frankfurt on driver-based decision-making. And at that time, the system was still very old, still very traditional, but with your team, through the first baby steps, you managed to achieve a lot. And now you're managing this huge analytical project. So Tanya, you're welcome to share with us about your XP&A journey. You're welcome.
Larissa, thank you for introducing me and for having me here. When we look at that part of Gartner, it was not long ago that the FP&A community talked about driver-based planning. Today, we go literally one step beyond. And Liron already highlighted in his presentation the Gartner research of earlier this year. Gartner came up with calling it the new era of continuous enterprise financial and operational planning. And all Gartner talks about was extending planning and analysis. And how this integration of FP&A and operational efforts has affected our company, I'd like to share with you today. So next slide, please. Before I start, I'd like to briefly introduce our company to you. We are a subsidiary of Deutsche Bahn. Deutsche Bahn has 300,000 employees, and DB Regio started its operations 180 years ago. It was back then that we had a steam-powered engine, and that one pulled a train with passengers. Today, we still offer passenger services in Germany. We're a market leader in public mass transportation, and we operate over 22,000 trains for 5 million passengers a day. With this, we make 8 billion euro, which is probably around 10 billion US dollars a year. And needless to say, we need a firm grip on our financials for a company as big as ours, because that's definitely vital. Only a few years ago, and Larissa pointed that out to you, we started to set up a value driver tree and decided to develop a performance canvas. So when we look at this page here, you can see it on the left-hand side, and it became the basis for our performance dialogues with all levels of management. Apart from our view on competitiveness and customer satisfaction, we also closely look, of course, on turnover and resources. We shouldn't want to discuss the necessity of driver-based planning today, but it's today the best practice method. So where financial plans include assumptions about business activities, which are modeled in such a way to drive financial output. In the next step beyond all this, you'll find analytic solutions so that scenarios can easily be revised, and you want to change input drivers, for example, by just literally pushing a button. Needless to say that this picture is highly dynamic, and today's modern technology adds a lot of speed to your implementation. With our company, we're implementing a real-time model and commenced our discovery tour on using machine learning and artificial intelligence. We want a multi-dimensional driver-based approach and want to integrate it in an overall business intelligence platform. So we definitely have to get rid of our data silos. And in addition, to facilitate the extension of planning and analysis to our operational units across organizations, we do this because we're deeply convinced that a rollout of digital processes will make us sustain in our competitiveness. Can I please have the next slide? So initially, we started with driver-based planning, baby steps, so to say. And we looked at major items with impact. That operational cost with the financial effect was the one that we looked at. But no matter how well we did in the planning in the past, a solid prediction was only possible when our key value drivers were fully understood. So we learned a lot more with modern technology, and I think we wouldn't be fast enough to proceed without it. Now, saying this, I'd like to introduce finally our use case for machine learning to you. Well, I picked energy cost. It's to illustrate our machine learning journey. And I think because in our company, there are two large cost positions to look at for energy cost. It's electricity and diesel. So why did we look at it at all? Well, especially for environmental concerns. And of course, the financial impact of diesel consumption made us develop an application. Diesel is necessary because countrywide there are large rural areas and their train operations are often provided only a few times a day. And for this little use, those tracks were not provided with any electric infrastructure. And that's the reason why 1/3 of our fleet still is run by diesel. So we learned that our challenge was that there was no metric system implemented in our fleet of diesel trains to monitor its specific consumption. And we definitely wanted to get up to better predict and plan our future consumption. At the beginning, the only metric we found was the consumption of a train, for the consumption of a train, that we had a date when the tank was filled up. At the end, then the amount of fuel loaded, and then at least the data again when it needed a refill. But with this, we didn't know much on the specific day or specific train line or on a specific route segment. So filling up a tank and returning to a gas station once it's empty was a very, very poor indicator for us. So the task in front of us was to generate a metric system. And we started by installing a telematic box in the vehicle to retrieve diagnosis data. Then we streamed this data, plus the vehicle's GPS position, to a cloud-based server. And at last, we developed algorithms out of that data that was derived to simulate its specific energy consumption. We aimed at a better analysis and a better planning for that diesel consumption. Wanted to show and learn more about the driving behavior because we noticed it was the key value driver. We also wanted to set up then individual driver reports, and currently we work on sending those as live data to the driver for better monitoring of his personal driving behavior. Then we're at the end as well installing an assistance system in the driver's cab. All we learned along that journey, it was mostly depending on our driving behavior of our staff. And for this reason, we knew that we would not be successful as long as we wouldn't extend our planning and analysis to the operational unit. So we closely developed the application and the algorithms together with them. The FP&A, so to say, was fully transferred to the operational unit at the end, but FP&A can still use the same tools, share the results, look at the same data. And I think with this transformation, we definitely reached an XP&A. The next page, please. Now we briefly look and dive into the analytics part. It is necessary to set up machine learning, but please don't worry, it's not as theoretical as you might think. Anyway, you need an IT application. So developing such apps usually does not get covered by any skills of your FP&A staff, at least not at our company. So we had to hire someone with both programming skills and a business analyst attitude. And this is why we hired data engineers to start with a collection of data from different sources and for working out the algorithm and the applied statistical models. Our algorithm was developed to answer quite simple questions. And we looked first at the question that tackled route segments with the largest potential of energy saving. And we asked where and when and which vehicle model, so to say, the basis. Our question number 2, there we asked for the group of representative train rides. And within this group, we started a classification of good, bad, and average rides with respect to its energy consumption, but also depending on time. And together with that operative unit, we finally defined a set point for evaluating the consumption. The last question asked for the best-in-class driving style. And we came out with a recommendation of a driving profile per route segment and generated that out of the historic data. And this year now is the point where machine learning comes in. With a daily growing larger database, and by adding other influencing factors, we had, for example, weather conditions or unpunctual trains running in front of the ride, we added those to the equation. And with this, we had our machine learning in place. Can I have my last page, please? So what did our journey teach us? I remember we had pretty good chances to proceed fast in any use case when all the experts we needed were available and when they got part of the team from the very beginning. And true experts were not only found at the respective operational unit, but also across functions and on any management level. And this is why we reached out and integrated and extended our view. Further, we learned that the necessity to stick to our performance indicator was gold, because this is an agreed set of KPIs and it has to become the basis for starting your journey too, because it also helped us to communicate very clearly benefits of our undertaking. Then we had a spirit of trying out, starting at the beginning with smaller use cases as experiments, and we looked at low-hanging fruit for our data projects and identified use cases that could be realized within a very short time span. And with it was very small steps that helped us to proceed fast, to rapidly gain experience and provide convincing results. But in any case, we would not be there where we are without a modern data architecture and tools, because they allow you to have a very consistent access to data across your organization. This is very much in line to what Emre told us before, and you definitely have to think about that heavily before you move on with anything like algorithms. So all I talked here is quite some change to your organization, of course, but I believe that it can only be mastered well when you look thoroughly at your human factor, because it's new skills and you have to find an open mindset. They are crucial for your journey. And when you try out new things, you need to set up something like laboratory conditions. Those can be easily assisted by something like modern project management methods, Scrum, for example, because they reduce the complexity of your project and they offer you enough flexibility. Then when we start talking about using new tools and adapting processes in your company, as with any change, I believe that some of your staff might face uncertainty and fears might come up. We did spend quite some time to invite anyone to be accompanied along our journey, and to become a more digital organization can only be done together. Well, now I'm at the end of my presentation, so let us take a brief look at the effects we generated within the first half year. Energy savings led us to an honorable financial impact, and at the same time, we largely reduced the CO2 exhaust for a better environment. My experience I shared with you is meant to inspire you. It's meant to take your first, to inspire you to take your first step today. Don't wait any longer. I assure you it's very promising, and you can proceed with the speed you want and with projects as large as you choose. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm now ready for your commentary.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing your case study with us. And I would like to ask Dr. Liran Dr. Liran, your 30 seconds commentary, please.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. I think it's an awesome demonstration on XP&A, right? You were talking about three topics. You were talking about the excellence, the center of excellence, and how you combine data from different sources. You were talking about going beyond the traditional finance. You were talking about environmental topics, right? How you reduce CO2 emissions. And by nature, it emphasized the digital transformation with all the tools, the AI, the machine learning methodology. So, you answered a lot of, those kinds of quiz yourself. You are definitely in that area of XP&A, and I think it's a good example for the practitioners here.
Thank you, Liran.
Thank you, Liran. And Emre, what would be your 30 seconds commentaries on this?
Absolutely. Again, thanks, Tanya, for a great presentation. And once you have the, not only the savings and the impact on the company financials, but for the environment as well, like all of them clearly light at the bottom here. I don't think anything can really beat that. And if I were to pick like one thing on this one about the new skills as well, right? For all of us, as we go through our own individual digital transformation journey, it does require definitely new skills that are oftentimes not our typical, financial analyst or, the resources that we have in the company. So again, in investments needed, absolutely. But again, just looking at the results and ROI, I bet, you would do that investment at any point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emre. Thank you so much, Tanya. Just a reminder everyone that we're about to start our Q&A session. And please continue to send your questions, because even if we don't have enough time to answer them online, we will be able to answer after this meeting, and we will get back to you through email. So the key takeaways, this is the world of extended planning and analysis, something that we previously called integrated FP&A or connected planning. And obviously, it's all about this scenario management, practically in real time, multidimensionally and collaboratively. And today we looked at the framework of this term, and we looked at 2 case studies. Now I would like to ask all our 3 panelists to switch on your cameras and microphones, and we are starting the Q&A session, and we already have a lot of questions, so let me manage this for you. So the first question is to Dr. Leron. So do you see XP&A being a single platform transformation or best-in-class points solutions?
Wow, it's an awesome one, but I think I assume the question referred to the tools. I would definitely say we need to take a combination of tools, but we need to harmonize all the data and all the methodologies in one. So not spending too much time on too many systems, but definitely, or potentially more than one. One is consolidating the information, managing everything, and probably a couple of satellites around it.
Thank you so much. Great answer. The next question is to Emre. Emre, does machine learning forecasting allow review and changes to computation variables? Can those changes be done by the user rather than a data scientist?
Over time, yes. I think that's kind of back to that new skills comment. That's how we've experienced, right? Like we started working with the data scientist, data analyst, trying to build the models for us. As the users kind of got a little bit more knowledgeable, I mean, it's really not that hard, or does not require the world's, the craziest technical skills. Over the time in the journey, our users were able to make those small tweaks as we go along.
Thank you so much, Emre. The next question is to Tanya. Tanya, what did you find were the biggest hurdle and the benefit from XP&A implementation?
So both. I probably could talk now for hours on the benefits and the hurdles. At the very beginning, when I first met Larissa, that was 3.5 years ago. It was to convince our the C-suite to take aside a budget for innovation, to get used to allowing experiments that would be able to fail, and we did fail at some point of time. But at the same time, what was the benefits? We chose, and Larissa, you said baby steps, yet it was baby steps, because the shorter the time span from a prototype to the first results, the better you had the link from your C-suite to presenting your idea until you had the first results that were convincing. And they couldn't believe it at the first time, because there was such a huge potential with very, very small use cases. And the shorter the time span, so that is the benefit of your experiments, the easier it gets within half a year to be able to talk about a story that you can tell.
Excellent, Tanya. So great example, and definitely it was interesting to see how your company developed with this. Yeah. So I would like to ask now all of you to answer one question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
The one question is about your next extended planning and analysis journey. So please, can you kindly share, each one of you, just one journey? So Tanya, let's start from you. So what is your next step at XP&A journey?
Okay, so we call it, the title itself is called Digital Twin. We want to implement a digital twin for the whole company. we want to cover every piece and end and dot that contributes to our EBIT. And as long as we are able to get transparency on those mathematical functions between the driver-based thing and your EBIT, then you're integrating throughout your company, and you're able to pull the trigger on your drivers at every moment, and you notice at the tip of your finger what happens to your EBIT. So it's called digital twin.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tanya. Exciting next step. What is the next step for you, Emre?
Absolutely.
Just a quick one, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I shared 2 examples, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single part of the company, every single finance organization on processes is kind of redesigned and reshaped and moved in that journey. So our primary focus in the next is going to be around the expansion, and while we have these great examples set up, being able to bring everybody else, every single group on par with that, the level of execution. Those are our things that we're working on.
Thank you so much, Emre. And Dr. Liran, the next step for you as a system provider at this journey?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a different perspective, and for us, it's always how we can make it approachable, how we can make it simple and easy, how we can take that vision and roadmap and make sure that our users or a customer can really use that, how you can take AI and simplify that, how you can take data from different sources, putting everything together and allow to plan, to analysis, and to create whatever the business user needs in order to be able and create that vision in real tool, in real system, in an easy and flexible way. So we are keep pushing into that direction, making everything simple and usable for our users, and making sure that they can accommodate that XP&A vision with our solutions.
Thank you so much. Let me with this finalize this Q&A session. There are a lot of questions, and I would like to encourage you to continue send your questions, and we will be able to answer in offline regime because of the timing. And now, before we close, I would like to say thank you so much to our international panel of experts. Thank you so much, Tanya, Liran, Emre. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I would like to say thank you so much to all our participants. Thank you for sharing, voting on the polling question and sharing your Q&A question and even commentaries. We see some interesting commentaries here. And I would like to say thank you so much to our partner and sponsor, JEDEX, for supporting this webinar. And before you go today, just a quick reminder, obviously, this is one of the last webinars for this year, though next week we have 2 others on interesting subjects. But because this one is for North American region, I would like to invite you to the next webinar that will be at the beginning of next year on January 26th, and it would be about the Inside Crystal Ball or 7 key trends in FP&A. So the registration process is open and you can start registering now. And before we go, I would like to ask you to stay connected. Let us move FP&A to the next level. Share with us, please, any innovations, any case studies, any ideas, any thought leadership. We're always looking for this information around the globe, and let us stay connected. There are many ways how we can do this. And finally, before we close this webinar, there will be opportunity for you to share, to fill the survey. And it's important for us, please do, because we would like to understand how we can make it better for you. Thank you so much. Please stay safe and enjoy your festive season, and see you next year, not only digitally, but face-to-face as well. Thank you so much. See you soon.